We're getting real with this episode, y'all. In this interview with Monique Coombs from Maine, it's two women who have overcome alcohol addiction, taking paths to mental health. It's me and Monique. And if you struggle with addiction, marijuana could be seen as playing with fire, but only you can know what's best for you. Also, we're not doctors, but if we don't normalize mental health solutions through casual conversations, who will? The connection of this IG Live interview starts off a little spotty, but smooths out as Monique shares her experience and the boundaries in place she has when using marijuana. Let's dive in. I'm Megan, host of the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. This show is dedicated to girlfriends, fiancés, and wives of commercial fishermen to connect and feel less alone. As we know, this lifestyle isn't for the faint of heart. So this is our space in the world to discuss the highs and lows of being in a romantic relationship with a fisherman. Because it's different than being a family member or friend. It just is. Join in to laugh, vent, and share stories with others who get your lifestyle. So what are you waiting for? Let's dive in. What's up? Okay, we're actually doing this. Today we're talking to fellow fisherman's wife, Monique Coombs, about marijuana and mental health and how her experience with cannabis has helped her with anxiety and depression and things like that. Disclaimer, we're obviously not doctors. We're also both people who do not drink anymore. We did, but we don't anymore. So, which makes this conversation super interesting to me to see how someone can use cannabis in a positive way, and especially if you maybe didn't have such a great, let's say, relationship to alcohol in the past. So I'm going to plug her in here right now and see if this is actually going to work. Hopefully time. But yeah, if you guys don't have any questions about this, please put them in the comments. Otherwise, I'm just going to deep dive. Oh, wait. Yay! Okay, I think we got it this time. Monique.
Hi.
From Heidelberg, Germany. We went to middle school together and connected again through Instagram, and holy crap, we both are married to commercial fishermen. So what's up?
I think that's just one of the coolest stories ever, honestly.
It really is.
In Germany, and then like finding each other via Instagram, and oh, by the way, we were both married fishermen. I just think it's kind of cool.
I do too. I love it. So toot toot to that horn for sure. Love it. And I really appreciate the fact that you're so open about this, and especially because we've both talked about how we don't drink anymore for different yet same reasons, because, you know, we all have our stories. So I actually wanted to dive into that now. I guess let's first start off with what kind of mental health challenges that you had that guided you towards the canna lifestyle. Oh man, the freaking connection. I swear. This is like, what? Y'all, it's like, this is such a bummer. Oh wait, do you see me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
All seems good on my end.
Okay, cool. Okay, so if you could tell us what kind of mental health challenges you had, and we can go from there.
Sure. So it actually, honestly, Megan, probably started way back when we were 14. If, not earlier. I had generalized anxiety. I've dealt with depressive episodes, and then some obsessive compulsive tendencies. Mm-hmm. And I think, as I got older, I probably used alcohol for some coping, like a lot of people do, and I did it by habit and subconsciously. Drinking alcohol is an easy decision, and it makes you feel better really, really fast. Mm-hmm. But, as I got older and started reading stuff and tried to get more connected to my mental health and find healthier coping mechanisms, I realized that alcohol wasn't serving me, and mm-hmm. that it a lot of my brain space. Like even going to lunch with friends, like I'd be driving there, like, am I going to drink? How many drinks should I have? If I have one drink, should I have two drinks? Well, what else do I have to do? Like, and it's just removing that from my life has been so freeing. Not just because like I don't drink anymore, but I don't even think about it anymore, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And then I smoked weed in college, and then I stopped for a while. But when I started getting migraines, I started again as a preventative measure, and started reading a lot about cannabis, and realized that when used responsibly, it can be it can be a tool in the toolbox, or a coping mechanism for some anxiety. It does help some people with depression. For me, if I have a depressive episode, I tend to not smoke.
Mm-hmm.
I like to use it more when I'm feeling anxious, or like, hanging around the house doing chores, just to shut my brain off, kind of thing.
Yeah. And so I find it super interesting that you talk about like habit versus intention, and how are you, or is it different, and how is it different? How are you able to have boundaries surrounding weed that you weren't able to around alcohol?
Yeah, I think alcohol always just sort of made the decision for me. I guess it was like, well, everybody else is drinking, I guess I'll drink, or whatever. Yeah. Where with cannabis, I definitely pick and choose when I use it. Like, I really like to smoke pot and work out, go on the bike, take my dog for a walk, do chores. I don't tend to use cannabis like when I'm working, or if I have a lot of writing to do. So it's much more intentional rather than just sort of like a habit. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that explains it.
Yeah. I guess I'm wondering, does your body react to it in the sense of like, you had mentioned before, like whenever you drank, it wasn't that you drank every day. It's just that you couldn't stop once you started. So with cannabis, does it feel completely different? You feel like you have a complete different control over it?
Absolutely, completely different. It's almost more like taking and again, we're not doctors.
Yeah.
But I think of it as like, I take vitamin D every day, and, it fits into my routine where I put it into my routine. And there's like a beginning and an end. Whereas like with alcohol, you drink and you basically like screwed up your rest of your day or your evening, and then the next day. And so it's, and then you're like, oh, well, it's just very like perpetual or cyclical. Whereas cannabis is like, yeah, it doesn't have, my body just doesn't have that, or my brain doesn't have that same like must do this, or what about this? And maybe, weirdly, maybe because alcohol is so normalized, it's easy for it to sort of take over your brain, because you're like, but everybody does it. How come I can't drink like that? Whereas it still has some stigma. So you maybe are like a little bit more thoughtful about it, or private about it. I mean, I'm obviously not super private about it. I mean, there are still aspects of it, but it's, maybe that's has something to do with it, like what's normalized and what's not.
And so can you explain the journey of going to a doctor and, figuring out if marijuana was right for you and how that felt?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was so weird. So like I said, I smoked a lot of weed in college. And so, then it was like recreational and fun. And then I stopped for a long time. But I started getting migraines when I was pregnant for my son, my second child. And they were really bad. I would get them in clusters, and they would, ruin my day. And so a doctor, well, first I was overprescribed pain medication. And if you have migraines, drugs like Vicodin and Percocet are not recommended, but I was overprescribed. And then I was prescribed a drug called Topamax. Mm-hmm. And the side effects from Topamax are actually pretty scary. And around that, I was taking Topamax. It's a prophylactic. And then I legalized marijuana for medicinal purposes. And so I was like, let's just give it a shot. And I went and saw this doctor who was doing medical cards. And he was like, what are you doing on Topamax? That stuff's pretty scary. Mm-hmm. And so I got off of the Topamax, and I was actually really nervous to get back into smoking weed, because I was still thinking about it in terms of like college terms and not like adults. And so I was nervous about it, but it worked for me as a tool and a coping mechanism to alleviate like a lot of the stress that was building up. I have a number of different triggers for migraines, and I think that it just helps alleviate some of them. And it definitely has reduced the number of migraines I get. I went from like quite a few a month to now, like, God, knock on wood, I only like once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, knock on wood, everybody.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so how often, like, okay, and then figuring out your doses, did the doctor help you with that? Or was he like, okay, here's a general idea and then figure it out? Or how does that work?
Yeah, I think the United States is probably still working on that a little bit. So he was like, we talked about it a little bit, and he was like, here's your card. But I actually got the most help when I went to the dispensary and talked to another person who was like, oh my God, I get migraines too. Here's what I do, and here's the type of strains that are available. I mean, that's the other thing. When I was in school, there wasn't, you just got weed from the guy down the hall, right? And it was like, take it, this is what I got.
Yeah.
Go to a dispensary and talk to somebody about the like whole chemical makeup of cannabis, the different strains that you should use, the different ways that you can ingest it. You can do oils and topicals and gummies. You can smoke it. You can get a vape pen. And so talking with someone there that has some experience and knowledge is super helpful. And then I'm a big nerd, so I also have like a bunch of books, and I can send you the list of books I have. And, that helps too, to sort of understand what's right, because everybody's different.
Yeah. Okay. So then for the fun part, what kind do you smoke, or what kind do you use, and how do you ingest it?
Yeah. So I usually, because I like to be active when I'm smoking, I don't like to, I don't smoke and watch a movie. I get the laundry done and dishes, and I get on the Peloton. I usually ask when I go in for like a hybrid that's leaning sativa, so a little bit more of, like what would be considered like an upper, I guess.
Yeah.
And right now, I really like this strain called Insane in the Membrane. I think they can't actually call it Insane in the Membrane for, legal reasons, so it's Insane. That's a good one.
Yeah.
And I usually just take one or two hits and call it a day. And that's usually what works for me. I know a lot of people that like the THC gummies to help them sleep. I stay away from edibles and ingesting it. My body just doesn't process it well. So for me, smoking is definitely the best option.
Yeah. Okay. Super interesting. How does your family feel about it? Like your mom and dad, do they have any comments about?
I think my dad thinks it's weird, but I mean, Megan, he's like, he was in the military, he's older. So I think he's like not so sure about it, but family for the most part is, pretty supportive. I think if I got to a place where I was being irresponsible or not, doing what I was supposed to be doing, there might be concern, but I think I, am healthier with it. So people are pretty supportive of it for the most part, in all sorts of different places. So,
and that ties into, I only got two more questions for you. Yeah. Being a canna mom, like is there a stigma around it? And also how do your children feel about, mom?
Yeah. I've never asked them point blank. I could, but, we're open with that. Conversations with them about cannabis in the same way that we talk to them about how, mom and dad don't drink, and here's why we don't drink, and here's why it's important to use alcohol responsibly, and when you do first try drinking, why you need to be a little bit hyper aware of how alcohol might impact you, because my husband and I both have chosen to be sober. I think again, modeling responsible use for cannabis, alcohol, or for anything, I think is the right thing to do. And my kids are older, 12 and 16, so I think it's completely reasonable to have conversations with them about it. And I think they know that my husband and I are both just very open to questions, and we're very honest with our kids. So I think, again, it comes back to just modeling responsible use for your kids.
Totally. And I feel like we touched on this last week, but growing up in an environment where weed is legal rather than where it's illegal, and you're preached that it's this terrible drug, your entire life, like that can do a little mind F to you of like, am I doing the right thing or wrong thing, whatever that is. So, yes, I love that, modeling the responsible use. And since this is about cannabis and mental health, I would love for you to explain your Fisherman's Wellness Program, because that sounds friggin' incredible. And I would love to do whatever I can to help,
Yeah, no problem. I'll talk about that, but I noticed we also have a question about addiction with cannabis. And I'll just answer that really quickly. I don't think I am addicted, but I do think any substance and even certain foods can be addicting. I mean, any type of habit that you might have can become addicted or addictive. I don't feel addicted to cannabis in the same way that I felt I was addicted to alcohol, and that I wasn't able to make a choice all the time with alcohol, where I feel like we mentioned, it's sort of with cannabis, it's an intentional yes or no, and it's planned, and it's, if I went 3 weeks without smoking, I would be okay, whereas when I was drinking, it was just constantly on my mind.
Yeah.
And then, so our Fisherman Wellness Program. So I work for the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association. My husband's a commercial fisherman, and we are building a Fisherman Wellness Program, mostly just to promote and advocate for more mental health resources for commercial fishermen. And that's, incredibly important to me because I care deeply about fishermen, but also I think that mental health is just a conversation we need to be talking about more in the US just in general, but even more so with an industry like commercial fishing that is, especially in the Northeast, made up mostly of men, mostly men over the age of 55. It's just a very vulnerable population anyway. And so anything that we can do to get them the support they need and create resources that are specifically for commercial fishermen, in the same way that the USDA has set up a lot of resources for farmers, that's basically the kind of stuff we're doing. But people can go to maincoastfishermen.org and follow us on all of the socials at Maine Coast Fishermen to get more information, because we'll be posting more about that kind of stuff. But it's tough, but it's a very rewarding program to be building.
Yeah, it's amazing. And thank you for starting that. I mean, that would be amazing if we could just have that at every port.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
And wanted to give a shout out to the female fisherman for that question. And I love that she said to normalize it. Yeah, the mental health, let's normalize it for sure. And I'm going to put down your website and also those cannabis book recommendations. I'll also list that in the feed. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and answering this incredibly can be vulnerable space to talk about, addiction and mental health and what we're doing that we can do for our own personal bodies at our best, because that's all we can do.
So thank you, Megan, for hosting this and creating the space. Maybe we can do it again.
Yes, let's do it again. All right. Take care. Love you. Love you guys. Thanks for being here.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, POCFs. If you want to connect with others just like you can join the private forum today to chat with others who understand this lifestyle without judgment. And even better, if you want to hang out in real life, there is an all-inclusive POCF retreat happening this fall 2023. Both links are in the show notes. We can't wait to meet you. Hey, y'all. I so appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. To support our community, I'd love for you to join us by subscribing to this podcast, hitting the like button, and/or posting a review. And if you're a POCF looking for more resources on how to navigate this unique lifestyle, things from long-distance dating to motherhood advice and everything in between, visit meganwaldrop.com. That's meganwaldrep.com. We can't wait to connect with you. Thanks for listening today. Being here means you're a part of the POCF family, and we wouldn't be a community without you. I'm Megan, and this is the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. As always, much love, POCF pride, and remember, you are not alone.